Welcome to the sponsored by the People Assembly, Prisoner Solidarity. You can follow us on Facebook, People's Power Assembly. Sign up on our webpage, peoplespowersembly.org. It's important to talk, but it's more important to act. We're going to start. Alec, are you ready?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce our first guest today, Miss Marilyn Barnes. And, sorry, we have some feedback.
But everybody might have to mute their mics while you all are talking.
Great. Yeah, that's fair. So to go ahead and introduce our first guest, Miss Marilyn Barnes. Her story is a harrowing one and not an easy one to talk about. Miss Marilyn Barnes is the mother of the late Marlon Barnes. And, just to try to get some context on this case, because this is a prolonged campaign that dates back several years now. Marlon Barnes passed away in April of 2019. It's been 2 years now. And he died at the Harford County Detention Center in Bel Air, Maryland. Now, his death was officially ruled a suicide by the Harford County Sheriff Department and the Maryland Chief Medical Examiner's Office. However, as things progressed, it became more and more suspicious that there was something a little more than just a suicide. We met Miss Marilyn shortly after Marlon's tragic death, and as we being the PPA, myself, Sharon Black, other activists in the city, and as we learned about this case and some of the details behind it, we became suspicious and started the Truth and Justice for Marlon Barnes campaign. This is a 30-year-old father of 5. This is a son, a brother, a cousin, a member of our community who we lost far too early. There was a tremendous struggle receiving the autopsy report, receiving a death certificate. The medical examiner took months, we're talking months, to sign the official autopsy report, release it to the family. It took months to get an official death record. The pictures that we received of Marlon after he was dead showed bruising and swelling around his lip and eyes, indicating a struggle. The only surveillance footage that we received after going through an official record request process with the sheriff's office was tainted and pretty clearly edited. So there was very little we could see. We believe that there was like very obvious smudges. We had people at the Real News look at it, smudges on this camera. We believe those were witnesses who had been smudged out, who were at least either trying to bring awareness to Marlon's cell or something, and they were smudged out in the video. And on top of all that, we made several requests to meet with the sheriff of Harford County, Jeff Gaylor. He denied every single one for a simple meeting with the family and their attorney, and then referred us to talk to his lawyer. And the last thing I'll say, so it is two things. It is our belief that either, even if Marlon did commit suicide, which we don't really believe, but even if he did, there was a willful neglect. There was an intentional ignoring of what was going on, especially considering that Marlon should have been out the next day. I mean, Miss Marilyn was told that he was going to be out. The next thing she knows, her son is dead. The charge was simply a violation of a protective order, a very low-level charge. But suddenly, he's denied bail. He's put back in the prison, in the detention center, and then he's dead. The last thing I'll say in terms of Harford County context is important. This jail has an incredibly high rate of prisoner suicide. We're talking a dozen in 8 years of prisoner suicide in this detention center, which is an incredibly high rate. Many of them were Black men, some were not. And we've seen this play out in cases like Sandra Bland in Texas, they say she committed suicide. We know Excuse my French, damn well she did not commit suicide. And the actual last thing I say before handing it over to Miss Marilyn, who's an incredible woman and a fighter against racism, against injustice for all people, is that Harford County itself is a very racist, hateful place. The sheriff is notorious for cooperating with illegal raids with ICE against the immigrant community up there. He is in a civil lawsuit right now for profiling. His office is profiling and beating a black civil rights attorney. I mean, this is a hostile place, especially if you're black and brown, and sometimes even if you're not. It's just a hostile, violent police department with a long history of suspicious deaths. And one of those, we lost our dear friend and brother, Marlon Barnes. And Miss Marilyn has been fighting since, really just to get the truth and to try to prevent this from ever happening again. So, Miss Marilyn, if you want to go ahead and unmute and just kind of tell your story and speak your truth, we're very happy to have you.
Okay, thank you, Alex. I want to say everything Alex says is so true. What I've been struggling with, and this, of course, is the week. It was April the 10th that it all happened. So it has been a hurtful week for me to try to get through this. But it was like he said on April the 9th, I get a call from my son. They tell me that, hey, Mom, we're going to have to get a real lawyer. They're trying to get me for a felony. So I said, okay, call me, the next day and all. But the next day I get a call like 11 o'clock from somebody tell me that a public defender is going to call me. I get about 11. Then about 11, I get a call from another public defender. And both of them both asked me, we just want to know your address when it was okay. It looks like everything looks okay. And we're probably going to be able to get them out. And we just need to know it's okay. And I said, sure, no problem. And then later that next day, that same day, which is the 10th, is when they called me. That same day, I didn't get another call till after 8. And I had 2 detectives come to my home to tell me that my son had hung himself. And during that time, though, and when I think back and all, it was kind of strange. Only one detective talked, only one detective name I got. I never even got the other detective name at all. So once I did that information, when I found out the next day, I went and I got his belongings. When I get there, I'm greeted by the chaplain. Well, not greeted by him. They tell me the chaplain wants to talk to me after I get his information, his paper and all. And the chaplain comes out, sit in the waiting room and talks to me. While he's talking to me, there's a group of, I notice correctional guards over in the corner, several of them over in the corner while he's talking to me. I'm, of course, crying all over the place, but I could see them over there. And he gave me this information. So then I left there, go down to the funeral home. I get to the funeral home, set up my arrangement for my son. And while there, I even asked them, I say, when can we go view the body? And he tells me, you view the body at the viewing, which I never really heard of either. So when I get there, when we have the service and all, I go to view my son's body. It doesn't even look like my son. And so bad that his kids didn't know. And they were like 12, 11, even down to the baby who was only 1 at the time. Recognizing all my family, but we couldn't really recognize him. So that's when I said, oh no, I need to know what happened to my son. It doesn't, look right, So then I go and I fill out the paperwork. They tell me I had to fill out, take it over there to them, fill out the paperwork to get the report first of all. So I go there. They tell me to come back. I go back a week later. I get there. They said they know they didn't have, but someone had been there. The only person was allowed to get the paper was me or my grandson mother. Okay. So then when I met, I saw something go across the screen, and it said something about prisoners down at City Jail. So I found out where it was going to be at. I ran down there just to, find out what's going on. I had no one because I tried several lawyers, nothing. So I ran down there, and I happened to meet the People Power Assembly down there, and we started talking and everything, and they heard me. And some reporter must have heard me as well. So he asked me if I want to say anything. And of course, I start running off at my mouth. I barely mentioned my son's name. I was so all over the place. Never mentioned Harford County Detention Center. So people probably even thought he may have even died at city jail because we was in front of Baltimore City Jail. So then the next day, I get the report, the incident report. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I noticed that they also closed the case that same day when they sent me that incident report. So during that time, Alice and all of us, we protest down at the medical examiner to get the death certificate. Didn't get that till that day. We told us it was over at the funeral home. Then we also protest in front of the courtyard and in front of, the court, as well as the detention center itself. Okay. And still nothing. Like Alice said, he sent paperwork out. We trying to meet with them, try to get photos of the autopsy. No, they said we can't get none of that information. And like he said, I'm just looking for answer. If he did, okay, just show me something. Show me something that says it was. But I don't feel that because I don't see that. Let me see something. And as he said, there's other people who have died there as well. After my son, 2 weeks later, there was a guy, a Caucasian guy, said he hung himself. My son was supposed to hang himself with sheets. He was supposed to hang himself with clothes. And the year after that, in 20, another guy, same month, April, hangs himself. And this is a young guy too, I think like 26 years old. Nothing's ever been said, nothing has been done. And things should be looked into, not just for my son, but all any death at the place like that. No one ever had me identify my son's body. I don't know to this day what his full body looked like. I never identified his body. And to me, I don't care where you die at, someone needs to identify that body. They never said who or nothing. And I stand here to tell you, I'm going to be with the people of Palestine forever, ever be with them fighting for prisoners everywhere.
Amen. And Miss Marilyn, it reminded me of a couple of things because of like the hell, frankly, we've been through with this case and her family. And the two things I want to mention before we move on is one, it is very important. I forgot to mention that we didn't get the incident report until she met us, or the autopsy report until an attorney got involved. I mean, they were going to make her go through so many hoops, and they make it so difficult. And if there's nothing to hide, then why are you hiding? And in terms of his body, there's a difference. A common sense person can tell the difference when rigor mortis setting in and when somebody's been beaten. And to me, it was, and to anybody with the brain, it was clearly evident that Marlon had been through some sort of struggle. And it's just, there was no reason to lose this beloved son. There was no reason. And the last thing I'll say, and I think it's very important to mention, the Barnes family showed up at every single demo we had and fought like hell the entire way. Miss Marilyn was never alone. I met her sister. I met her grandchildren. I met her daughter-in-laws. The family came together to fight this thing. And so, when there are accusations of, oh, this is just a bunch of rabble-rousing. No, this comes from the community. The family waged this battle. And the PPA and the family together is one unit and are continuing to raise our voices and will continue to do so, because there should not be another Marlon Barnes or Sandra Bland or George. It's enough already. I don't, just every time you hear the story and it's just, we can't allow this. We're not going to allow this anymore. So I think we can all say we're super grateful for Miss Marilyn continuing to tell her story, even though it is so freaking painful. Having to rehash it, but we know it's important, and that's why she does it, and that's why we do it, and we're so grateful for her.
Right.
Miss Joy seemed to.
I can't hear you. Joyce?
Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Want to let you know, Miss Marilyn, that we love you and we support you, and we will be with you every step of the way. I do have a question. After they let you see your son briefly, or I'll mute your mic, Miss Marilyn.
I did. I'm sorry.
Okay, now go ahead.
I know at the funeral home, like I said, at the jail, I never saw anything, you know. I
Wow.
never was called there. He died, like they said, it happened like around 2 or 3, somewhere around that time. But no one never called me till 8 o'clock. I even at the funeral home when I asked them, well, when I view the body, because I had lost my brother at 18, so I knew that they let you view the body because my sister had to view my brother's body. So
What?
I asked the guy that, and he said, "Oh, you'll view it at the viewing." That I would never had any other time to view my son body, and I didn't understand that. And so we even questioned them, why didn't they let us view the body? And they just said, you viewed it at the viewing. That's not viewing a body at a viewing. I mean, I had to see the body, and that's what I didn't get to the view.
So you didn't get to prove his clothing?
No.
Wow.
Not even like they say that I heard that, you know, like I said, my brother was really the first closest person to me that passed, and we had to cremate him because the body was decomposed. So they said they let you view the clothing, see if you're okay with that and all that. I didn't think to do any of that.
Wow.
And I couldn't understand none of that as well. And like I said, you know, I will continue. You know, I will go as far as it takes me, but
Absolutely.
I will continue. I will continue. There's no stopping me. Even it hurts bad.
I'm
Really
sure
bad. You know, it hurts.
I can't even the hurt and pain that you're going through. Wow. So we support you, sweetie. We will be right there with you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Joyce,
Yes.
Ms. Joyce, I just wanted to raise a couple of things because I think this, you know, we've looked at this case and looked at it, and there's no way that I think that any of our members believe that this was an actual suicide. You know, that's just a fact. There's just a whole lot of background to this that indicates that it's more likely that he was murdered, and you know, it wasn't a question of suicide. Now, I just wanted to add that when some of the real news reporters came out, to their credit, you know, they were looking at the video that the prison released, and it appeared to all of us that some of that video had been edited. Not that that video ever proved anything in terms of suicide. It was just that there was some suspicious kind of activity in the background. It's hard to describe it for the listeners and people on this program, but it just seemed very suspicious in the way that this video portrayed that time frame. And that's kind of hard for us to describe right now. But this case is never, you know, we're never going to give up on this case one way or the other.
That's
and
right.
Partly the crisis of COVID has put a little bit of a damper on what we've been able to do in these last, you know, this last past year. But it will not end, as Ms. Barnes said. And there's no way, I mean, and there's no way that the state itself, the state's attorney's office, actually should be investigating Harford County jail system, because there's this unusual number of suicides right then and there should be a huge red flag to what's happening there. And I think that both Ms. Barnes and Alec talked about the intense racism that exists in Harford County. And, you know, when we were out there picketing, you know, you could sense it. It was, you know, the atmosphere was very intense when we went to hold the picket line. You felt like you were entering Klan territory. And then I want to add, when Alec was talking about the dedication of this family, some of the family came all the way from, I think it was South Carolina, if I recall right, or North Carolina, I apologize, North Carolina. And we met members from North Carolina, and they were following it all the way from there, and actually came up and drove just to attend, you know, a 2 or 3 hour picket line at the county courthouse, at the sheriff's department. So I just wanted to add that, because we're going to keep fighting until we can get justice for Marlon Barnes. You know, Marlon Barnes didn't have to die. And, you know, and not just for him, for all the prisoners, you know. So that's all I wanted to add. But other people may have questions also of Ms. Barnes and Alec.
Right. Miss Van, do you have comment, question for Miss Marilyn?
Miss Barnes, I am trying to hold back tears because I don't know what it feels like to lose any of my children, but I have lost a brother almost similar to your son, my baby brother. And so just to hear the pain that comes from you as a mother and what's going on today worldwide is devastating. And I'm tired. I'm past tired. I'm tired of our men and women are getting being framed and accused of crimes they did not commit. I'm tired of how we're being treated. I'm tired of our young Black men are already labeled before they even go outside. And if they outside, they pull them over for stupid things that doesn't really make sense. And the way that they handle things, that's not police training. I don't know where they get it from, but I think that some of them need to get evaluated, especially if they've been on the force, and even correction officers, if they've been so long on their jobs, at some point they need to get evaluated. Be honest if and when things happen. Nobody ever wants to take the blame when something tragic happens. They want to shift the blame off on an inmate or the person theirself. Your son has children, beautiful children, and so he wants to come home. He has a beautiful family that was supporting him. It's no way, and he had no reason to take his life, especially if he knew he was coming home to his mom and his children. Right. The most important thing that strikes my heart is you're left unanswered of his murder. You left with a dent in your heart behind the fact that, forgive me, y'all, that he's gone. And so he's not just a brother. That's my brother. That's Miss Joyce's brother. That's Alec's brother. That's Miss Sharon's son, So I don't look at one individual as just being your son. That's all of our brother, son, uncle, nephew. That's all of us. That's why the PPA fight as hard as we do until we get the message sent out there. Because it is a message, and all we want is the answers to change the system. Our system is so corrupt.
Yes.
We're not made for them to help the poor people. They're not. They don't care. And so if we keep fighting, if we keep pushing, we're going to get results. They are tearing up Minneapolis right now. No, that's not the way. But if you're not hearing them, people that's suffering, that's hurting, this is what's going to happen worldwide all over again.
It is.
And so I'm sorry that you didn't get an attorney to fight, because you should have an attorney. You should. You should have an attorney that should look into the case day one when it happened. Your son didn't take his life. He didn't. Just to read the story, your son didn't take his life.
I've read it. Yeah.
But we're here for you, and we're going to continue to fight. And we're going to fight until dusk to dawn, until we get some answers, because we didn't had enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the fight is a Alec, do you want to say anything?
Oh no, I'm good.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Can I say something? I just want to say that, and then they say in the report, things they said in the report was so untrue that, you can just look at it. And then I had to read it knowing it was untrue. And the worst thing was they said that they didn't let him call me because he asked me to call the girl. And I was like, there was no reason for them not to let me. And I even asked for the phone calls, copy of the phone. They said they get rid of them in 2 days. They don't hold them up for 2 days. 2 days, and you got an open case. And then, because I wanted them to hear that I told him no on there. So if I told him no, then you should have said that him at least call me. But that was their reason for him not calling me.
Not
And that's
letting
what
him
I
call
wanted.
his mother.
Yes.
His mother.
So when that happened to my brother, and so his mom always paid to put the money on the phone through her credit card. And so what she did was pull the telephone list from her bank statement because they wouldn't give it to her either. They wouldn't give her the information. So the good thing that she had a leg to stand on was she paid for it to put the money on the phone through her credit card.
Now, are they going to give you the actual conversation?
Well, it didn't give her the conversation, but it just pulled up to every phone call that that was made, that he talked to her more than enough, almost every day.
Right.
And
Right.
so
And
up
they
so up
talked to
until that
they
point,
said, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, they said that he only called me once. He called me more than once. He called me twice because, like you said, the first call, the second call, I had to put money on there. And because of his short time there, he didn't even have a number. I had to go through a different way, they said, because he didn't have a number that you had to attach to get the phone call. But I was
Right.
able to get the phone call, and he was able to give me a call back to finish up the call. And then he said, like I said, the last day he said to me, "Mom, the guy seemed to be okay. I'm going to go in the cell or wherever he go in because he don't want to start any trouble." And I don't
Right.
know who's this person you're talking about too. None of that. I know none of that.
Exactly. Well, they usually like the voice recordings of the phone calls.
Yes, they did because they said they heard him ask me to call the girl. So they listened to the recording, but
Right.
yet
They
you couldn't give me a copy of the
say
recording.
no.
Right. So
So
that
they
is
will
what's in.
terminate the phone conversation. I know that. If you try to call somebody else, they will. They will terminate that phone
Mhm.
conversation. I'm
And
familiar.
he said, call mom to check on the kids. That's
Yep.
what he wanted me to.
Absolutely. They're absolutely racist in every
Mm-hmm.
sense of the word. Alex was spot on. They're racist. They're absolutely racist. I have family members there, and I worry about them all the time because Crawford County is absolutely A1. Yeah, all those folks in there. Yeah. So, Miss Marilyn, if you have any additional comments, anybody have any additional comments? Because that's going to segue us into our next conversation. Everybody, we're good? Miss Van, everybody's good? Okay. So we're going to talk about these. There have been several instances recently of police terror. I'm just going to read a little bit from an article that I printed today. In Brooklyn Center, Minneapolis, the police officer who fatally shot a black man during a routine traffic stop in Minneapolis. Let me see. I got to put my phone over here. They were in a suburb, apparently intended to fire a taser instead of his handgun. Now that's what they're saying, but I need you guys to help me out. I understand guns on the right, taser on the left. If you know your left from your right, why are you intending to get your taser, but you're using your right hand to get your gun? I'm not sure if that's how it is. You guys help me out. Somebody jump in there and tell me, your thoughts on this
in
situation.
Baltimore City, that's how it's set up.
Okay.
The gun is on, and you're right. It's no excuse about it. It's no way that he made a mistake to grab the wrong tool to stop him, even if that he thought that he was going to get back in his car and leave. At this point, you got his identification. So you know where he lived. That would have been another charge for him that he ran from a police officer. Well, that would have been, I'd rather for him to run than for you to kill him.
They were going to kill him anyway. I think so. What I'm reading is that you can hear the officer yelling, "I'll tase you, I'll tase you, I'll tase you." But he didn't use the taser. He used, his firearm. So I'm not sure. Was he fired? Somebody jumped.
No,
So, yeah, the officer actually I think was a woman, and she hasn't been fired or anything. She goes, it's wild because she already has her guns drawn, and it's in her line of sight because they just released the body cam footage. It's in her line of sight, and she goes taser, 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 and then it's very, and then she point blank shoots him, and it's like, what?
And in the midst of
in the midst of the trial for Derek Chauvin.
Right, in the midst of that, just like you said, Miss Sharon, like what in the world? Like, so everybody's, just giving their opinion. And I'm gonna tell you guys, frankly, I get so upset, highly upset, when somebody says, "Oh, he's going to walk." If you've seen, and I think everybody has seen the 9 minutes with George Floyd, and now we have this. I pray that she is arrested. So, I mean, I guess they would have to file charges against her, and maybe it's too early to file charges. Somebody speak to that end, because I'm not sure.
Well, I'm watching it, and they're saying that she is now being fired. Also, they are doing the investigation. Also, not to take away from that, they're also saying that, and I don't know if you guys were listening today with the George Floyd, the Derek Chauvin's trial. And so Derek Chauvin's attorney asked the judge for the jury to not mention what happened last night versus to come out and say that he did it because this off what happened last night, to mix the two together. So how dare you? Because she did no different than what her co-worker did, Right. But they just mentioned that she's now lost her job and that the investigation is still moving forward. And so that just didn't happen last night to him. The VA officer was pepper sprayed as well and was pulled over for no apparent reason. And then you had Georgia had a shootout with 3 officers versus the 2 guys that were in the car that was afraid to stop. So they kept going because they said, "You're going to kill us." So they exchanged fire. Yes. But you pulled him over originally because they were speeding. And so 1 officer is killed, 1 is in critical condition, and 1 is just wounded.
Right. Okay, Alec.
I just wanted to say.
Go ahead, Ms. Sharon.
Oh, I just wanted to say one thing. Also, I wanted to recognize one of the comments. John Hansborough says, absolutely, it's been enough. And I really agree with their sentiment on that issue. And, Dwayne Wright was a 20-year-old, I say kid because I'm older, but, young man with a 2-year-old child and a family that supported him, mother and father. And he's dead. He was pulled over for a violation of having an air freshener that his mom gave him for the car that he was driving. And so, whatever they come up with, whatever excuse or whatever they don't do, the question really is the systemic racism, the white supremacy, all of it, police terror as it is in this country has to end. And when is it going to end? I mean, so we can go through these details of these cases over and over again, but it's so frustrating because it's always about the same thing. Either Black or Latinx or poor youth are under attack in this country constantly and overwhelmingly by every major police department, supporters of Trump, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to add that on the Dante Wright case. And I think everybody's waiting to see what's going to happen in the Derek Chauvin case. It's like the entire country, and actually people of many nationalities who are just waiting to see if there's going to be even a fragment of justice served in terms of killer police going to jail. Who knows? Maybe that'll happen this time because there's so much attention being spent on the case, but maybe not. And I know I wanted to say this just so we don't forget it, is that when the Derek Chauvin case ends, we want to be able to have an emergency response demonstration,
Yes.
either the day of or the day after, depending on when that verdict comes out, so that we can define the narrative that is taking place. I mean, already they've tried to put the victim on trial.
Absolutely.
But really, George Floyd is not on trial. It is Derek Chauvin. And so we want to be able to address that. If by a miracle there's a victory, then we will be declaring that. But if there's not, we will be taking to the streets to continue to demonstrate. And, there's progress in many cases in the sense that, there's a spotlight on this, but the fight's not going to end around it. So I just wanted to add those 2 cents.
Right.
Thanks, Ms. Joyce.
It's so heartbreaking when you hear about it. So, like, in the same city, in the same, this trial is like actually in progress. Like, I do not understand. So, like, I don't think that firing somebody is enough. Shout out to Mr. Andre. No justice, no peace, jail, killer police.
Right.
Alec, I do want to hear from you. What's your take on this situation? Ms. Merlin, we're going to come to you also.
I mean, what Sharon said, I think really nails it. It's like the details become so crippling. I mean, with this Dante Wright case, it's like you would think that, we've got the trial of the century here of Derek Chauvin. This is the biggest trial since the O.J. Simpson trial. This is like in the same city. You don't have the sense to reach for your taser instead of your handgun. I mean, when I think everything goes to show that the police really don't care. They're not there. They're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to wage a war of racism on oppressed communities and working people, and they don't care. I mean, they cared. You would think that somebody would have told them, like, really, like,
right
during the middle of this trial. And I do want to just, before we move on, mention that I think the nature of the defense is really disgusting. And I actually think it's really racist and really evil. It's this idea that, okay, if you're black and you have problems, you deserve to die.
Right, exactly.
I mean, that's the defense. George Floyd had problems. Lots of people had problems. Doesn't mean you deserve to be tortured and killed.
So if I have a substance abuse problem, you're going to put me on trial and just put the spotlight on me, as if he killed himself. It's so disheartening. Miss Marilyn, you want to, before we go to Miss Sharon for updates, you want to give your take on that situation?
I want to say that last night they had a special. It's a series. I didn't realize it was going to be a series on CNN. The People versus the Ku Klux Klan, and they even mentioned George Floyd, and they mentioned Breonna Taylor, and they mentioned people back and missing all that back in there. And I sat there and I watched that, and it'll come on again next Sunday as well. And it's like, I think this happened in 1981, so it's still the same thing, and this person, what was the woman's son, was hung in the tree by, they found out it was by the Klans who did it, and she eventually sued them. But if you have a chance, you can look over it, just read on it. It's a special on there. So it's
Marlon, because I want to listen.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
What channel is that?
It's on CNN.
It's
CNN.
Because I'm definitely.
And it comes on at 9:00 on Sunday.
Tune in on Sunday.
It's the story of Hula Mae Donald, who the black woman in the South who took on a very important struggle and lawsuit against the Ku Klux Klan, and it really, dealt them a huge blow. So,
And to see them still mentioning You know, they mentioned, well, it was brought up to date because, like I said, they mentioned George Floyd and all that. So it was brought up to date as well. So it was interesting too.
So disheartening, but the fight continues. We're gonna fight
The fight
until
continue.
yes,
Yes, the fight continue.
we ride it till the wheels fall off, and even after, we're gonna keep going. We're gonna
Hmm.
keep going. Miss Van, you have any final comments before I turn it over to Miss Sharon for updates?
I'm wishing for the best out of the trial,
Outcome
because listening to um the whole entire trial, I have been following the trial since it started, and
every day.
so I am praying that they come out with the true verdict, because you can't get enough. We can all get together and sing the same song, but we can't all get together and say the same lie. But those witnesses were excellent. They were true to their story and their word. They meant well. But the one witness that really troubled me was
Mhm.
that old man.
I heard
He he troubled me, and I broke down because even though Chauvin didn't talk to none of the witnesses. He never said a word. But out of all of those angry people that were standing on that sidewalk, you talked to that old man. Come
yes.
here. And he was so close to you that you could have hugged him, and you were conversating with him like it was okay. And so they claimed that his supervisor at the time stepped down. I'm not sure if he did. But they claimed that he stepped down. And so every witness that took that stand, I applaud them. They did excellent. They're angry.
Right.
My color, the opposite color, they did great. I applaud them for standing up. And then Chauvin sitting there taking notes. What notes can you be possibly taking? What I'm waiting for is for him to take that stand. I'm praying that they allow him to take that stand.
He may not. He may not. He may get his defense attorneys to speak for him. He may not. Well, we have about 9 minutes. We're going to go to Miss Sharon for any updates, anything we need to know about, any upcoming protests, Miss Sharon, because I will surely be there.
Yep, and we surely are having some protests.
Yay!
Let me kind of repeat what I said about the Derek Chauvin case. Is that when the verdict is announced, we'll be holding an emergency response demonstration. And of course, we're getting the word out and talking about all these cases, and people can go to our Facebook page to get details once we're able to announce it. Now, the emergency protest demonstration will take place if it's announced in the morning at 5 p.m. If it's not announced to much, much later, people will probably spontaneously gather anyhow. In the case that it's very late, we will be demonstrating the next day. But keep in touch with us through Facebook. We will be gathering at 2011 North Charles Street, which is at 20th and North Charles Street, where cars can park. We can do a car caravan and a march, and we'll be marching to City Hall. And we're going to be reaching out to a lot of other groups to see if we can have a unified demonstration when that takes place, because we can't let this case, we've got to keep police terror and racism to the front and center of everything that we're doing. So that's one announcement I wanted to make. On the 24th, those who are able are going to Philadelphia because there is a regional and also a national call for demonstrations around Mumia Abu-Jamal's case, who's the political prisoner,
Yes.
was a former member of the Black Panther Party, who right now is languishing in jail and, has dire health conditions, including COVID and congestive heart failure. And there's a new call to release him from prison. He is innocent. There's been calls for a long time for him and Leonard Peltier, political prisoners, to be released. The 24th of April is his birthday. It's a Saturday. And so we will be taking cars up to Philadelphia. We still are discussing whether we'll do something local, because we know with COVID around, we're trying to take measures to be careful. But that is Saturday, April the 24th. And then the last announcement, not the least, is May Day, which is May 1st on Saturday, is International Workers' Day.
Okay.
It's a day that's been set aside worldwide to protest around workers' rights. And as many people know, we have been talking about the case of the Amazon union, or the attempts to get a union at Bessemer, Alabama, where majority Black workers, mostly women, have been fighting to get union recognition.
Right.
There has been an election. The election was stolen, but the fight is not over because the union has filed unfair labor practices. And if those, what they call unfair labor practices, go through, there will be another election. There's not a lot of time for me to talk about how that election was stolen, but it was. It was, and what Amazon did as a company, and I'll just go on this very quickly, try to speak quickly about it, is they set up a ballot box right on the company property. And it was just recently revealed, either today or yesterday, that once they were counting these ballots, that there was some very, very unusual activity on February the 12th and the 17th, where it appeared that ballots had been dumped. In other words, every day, a dozen ballots would come through, be sent to the National Labor Relations Board. But on these 2 days, the first day, something like over 250 ballots suddenly came in, all of them no, or most of them no votes. And then on February 17th, suddenly another 350 ballots come through with no votes. It looks like a ballot drop, whatever you want to call it. And there was so much intimidation by the company, illegal intimidation, captive meetings inside of Amazon. Really, basically, they were just brainwashing sessions against the union organization. So just people should know the fight is not over at Amazon in Bessemer, Alabama, and our first duty is to support that. But, it's not the end of all the labor problems. A lot of it is also what's happening with COVID, lack of PPE, no hero pay, horrific conditions, low pay. And so all these issues, we will be holding a march again for May Day and end up at City Hall at 3 p.m., starting at 1 p.m., to basically have a workers' assembly where people can talk about their problems on their job, whatever they may be. And also, unemployed people are workers too. Prisoners are workers too. So all these issues have to be highlighted. The prisoners, people who are unemployed, who have not gotten their unemployment in Maryland yet. I don't know how many people that I know personally who haven't received their benefits. No. So it'll be a day of workers' protest, but the issue of Derek Chauvin is connected. So it is not like, police terror won't be high on our agenda on May Day also. And of course, immigrant and migrant workers' rights, which has been a long-standing issue for workers' rights in this country. So all of these things will be talked about, and there really will be an open mic for people to speak about their problems on the job, whether it's harassment, low pay, too many hours, all the different issues that come up. So I talked a little fast, Ms. Joyce, but I wanted to get in as many announcements. And again, with the Derek Chauvin trial going on, emergency response demonstration. Absolutely. Good, bad, or in between. And of course, we're hoping for something good, but to tell you the truth, given the system of white supremacy in the U.S., we're prepared to be taken to the streets on that day, just in case. So thank you.
You're welcome, Ms. Sharon. Also, I do want to mention that May 1 is National Day of Prayer. So we'll be praying for all workers, the downtrodden, the misunderstood. We'll certainly be praying, and we will absolutely be out there still fighting, and fight on we must, ladies and gentlemen. Fight on we must. I want to thank you, Ms. Merlin, for being on the show with us this evening. We love you. We certainly support you. Good night, everybody. Be blessed.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Lady Jeff.